This demo will introduce the assembly object in facts by going through assembly identity, deletion of parts, the setting container first, and also how to add several assembly tables. Okay, let's start by going through the model. We have three variants in our model. It's a carrier, it's part A, and it's part B. They are produced in separate sources, and they go through the default flow to the assembly object. From the assembly object, parts might follow different flows. For instance, the carrier will go to the disassembly and move along to the finished goods inventory before leaving the model. Part A can either go from the assembly to the finished goods inventory or from the disassembly to the finished goods inventory before leaving the model. And likewise for part B. Now let's set up the assembly. Select the assembly object, open the assembly tables editor, select the part that will be the container, in this case carrier, and push add. Select which parts that go on top of the carrier. We want one part A and one part B. Looking at this column, assembly identity, it will give the assembled parts an identity after the assembly. We stick with carrier for the moment. Let's have a look on this. We start the animation and we show the assembled variants. Okay. Here we go. Parts enter the assembly are assembled, and remember the identity was carrier, so they follow the carrier flow to the disassembly, where all parts are disassembled and they move. The carrier goes to this object, part A goes here, and part B goes here before leaving the model. What happens if we change the identity? Again, open the assembly table. Let's select part A as the identity. And we start the animation. Now, after being assembled, instead of going to the disassembly, they go directly to the finished goods inventory for part A. That is because now it will be viewed as part A when assembled instead of carrier that went here. So you see the connection between the assembly identity and the different flows in the model. Okay, now if we would like to delete a part during assembly, we could do that. So we go back to the model, we select the assembly object, open the assembly table, and let's say that we want to delete part A. Notice here that you are not allowed to delete the container, obviously, because then you don't have anything to assemble the parts on top of. And did you notice that during my selection of the deletion of part A, the identity shifted back to carrier? That is because you can't set the assembly identity of a deleted part. So looking at this in the animation view, we will see all A and B being produced, and the carrier as well, and in the assembly they are put together before entering the disassembly. And here you see carrier and part B, while part A has been deleted in this assembly object. Now let's have a look on the container first setting. This is the setting here, and it has been set to true. And you might have noticed during the animation that part A and B fill up these buffers before the container enters here. They are blocked until the container enters the assembly. And that's exactly what this setting does. It specifies that the container needs to enter the assembly object first. And then the parts going on top of the container are allowed to enter. And if we instead switch this setting to false, the parts can enter independently of each other, like this. Here we see A and B, and now they enter the assembly before the carrier enters the assembly object. So let's take a look at having multiple assembly tables. So instead of assembling both A and B on top of the carrier, let's add another assembly table. It's done down here. It's the table 2. Again, we select the carrier as the container, and on top of that we want to assemble part B, and we can have the part B being the assembly identity. Going back to the first table where we had both parts, we remove part B, so now we have this assembly table specifying that we want part A on top of the carrier, and this table specifying that we want part B on top of the carrier. And let us not forget to keep part A and set it as the identity of the assembly. So in the animation, now we will have different assemblies going out of the assembly object. We will see part A exiting this way and part B exiting this way. And it's FIFO, first in, first out. So we will have part A, and the next one will be B, and so on. So the assembly tables will be assembled as soon as enough parts are available for that assembly table, and it will do that in a FIFO order. So that's what's it for this demonstration. And as a brief recap, we looked at the assembly identity, looked at the deletion of assembled parts, we took a look at container first setting, and we went through having multiple assembly tables within the same object. Obviously you can specify different amounts here as well of parts going into the assembly, and use units is a setting that we'll save for later for now. Okay, thanks for watching.